Hey guys, the Alabama inmate convicted of killing 3 cops has been executed just hours after the Supreme Court issued a stay of execution following public protest of his innocence from Kim Kardashian and Martin Luther King Jr.'s son. So Nathaniel Woods, 44, was sentenced to death for the 2004 murders that rocked Birmingham, despite another man confessing to being the lone gunman in the slayings. He was set to die by lethal injection at 6 p.m. Thursday at Holman Correctional Facility in Atmore. In a dramatic turn of events, the Supreme Court issued a stay just minutes before his execution at around 5:30 p.m. But the court backpedaled on the move hours later, despite the 44-year-old's attorney filing a petition claiming ineffective counsel in his first trial and the outcries of celebrities that he was innocent of the crime. Woods was executed by lethal injection and pronounced dead at 9:01 p.m. Martin Luther King III condemned the Supreme Court and Alabama Governor Kay Ivey for their reprehensible actions and the irreversible injustice caused. Police officers Carlos Owen, Charles Bennett, and Haley Chisholm III were shot dead on June 17, 2004 at an apartment in Hensley, Birmingham, where they were trying to serve a warrant for Woods' arrest for misdemeanor assault. A fourth officer was also injured in this shooting but survived and testified against Woods. Woods' alleged accomplice, Kerry Spencer, confessed to being the lone gunman responsible for the slaying of the officers. But despite the confession, both men were charged and convicted with capital murder. Prosecutors alleged that Woods and Spencer had conspired to lure the cops to the apartment to murder them. They said that while Woods did not pull the trigger that ended their lives, he was Spencer's accomplice in the events that became known as the deadliest day in the history of the Birmingham Police Department. Woods was in the apartment at the time of the murders. A jury convicted Woods in December 2005 and returned a non-unanimous verdict of 10-2 for the death penalty. Such convictions are allowed under state law, and other people have been executed for non-trigger manslayings in the past. Spencer has repeatedly insisted that Woods is innocent of any involvement. Nathaniel Woods is 100% innocent, wrote Spencer in an open letter. He says he knows that to be a fact that because he's the person that shot and killed all 3 of the officers that Nathaniel was subsequently charged and convicted of murdering. Nathaniel Woods doesn't even deserve to be incarcerated, much less executed. Last week in an interview with The Appeal, the shooter again said there had been no conspiracy. There was no plan to kill the police, he said. Celebrities and activists weighed in on the case, protesting Woods' innocence of the crime and calling for Alabama Governor Ivey to halt the execution. Kim Kardashian, who is trying to rebrand herself as a justice reform activist, tweeted the case to her 64 million followers on Thursday and pleaded with the governor for a reprieve. She goes, hashtag Nathaniel Woods is scheduled to be executed in Alabama tonight for murders he did not commit. Joined a broad coalition, including members of the jury and relatives of the victims, in urging at Governor Kelvey and at AG Steve Marshall to stay Nate's execution, she tweeted. Kim's plea came after Martin Luther King Jr.'s son and other famous figures all called for the execution to be halted. Martin Luther King III stepped in Tuesday after Woods' earlier request for a stay of execution was denied on Monday. We need your help. Nate Woods is about to be executed in Alabama. This is an injustice and we need to make sure the public is aware. Please retweet, tag at Governor Kevley and use the hashtag #SaveNate, he tweeted on Tuesday. The message was shared alongside a letter he sent to Ivy. And King said in a Twitter post he sent the letter after she denied her phone call. In just 2 days, your states and the states he was born in is set to kill a man who is very likely innocent, he writes in the letter. 55 years ago, he said his father, Martin Luther King Jr., led a march from Selma, Alabama, where he and fellow civil rights activists were killed and beaten. Under your watch, Alabama is about to produce yet another tragic injustice. He later added in a tweet, his father marched from Selma 55 years ago, where many people were killed and beaten. He was fighting for justice his whole life. He says allowing the execution of Nathaniel Woods would only show that they have not learned from the past. It's time to be on the right side of history. King reiterated concerns that Wood would never got a fair trial. Wood's family has long insisted that he's innocent of the charges. His sister Pamela Woods stood outside the correctional facility on Thursday ahead of his execution, holding up a page from the trial transcript that she said shows her brother was surrendering when the three officers were shot dead. She said they want justice for the officers. They want justice for her brother. It can't be one-sided or for one group of people. You have to have justice for everyone. They want justice for Nathaniel. A Change.org petition gained more than 91,000 signatures on Thursday afternoon calling for the execution to be stopped. Ivy had given no indication of whether she would grant a reprieve. However, Alabama State Attorney General Steve Marshall said in a statement Wednesday that Woods had been correctly found guilty and sentenced to death by a jury of his peers. In the 11th hour, a reprieve was granted by the Supreme Court, signed by Justice Clarence Thomas. The stay came so close to the wire, Woods had already had his final meals. The 44-year-old attorney then filed a petition to the Supreme Court at around 7 p.m. asking for his case to be reviewed on the basis that he had ineffective counsel in his first trial. Mr. Woods has never had the benefit of competing conflict-free counsel to investigate and present his constitutional claims, so the public cannot be assured that his proceedings have adhered to the Constitution. The Alabama Attorney General's office denied the petition, saying the stay was unwarranted. At around 8 p.m., 2 hours after Woods' execution was scheduled, the Supreme Court reversed its decision, lifting the stay and putting the execution was back on. Kardashian and King again took to Twitter in the last-ditch attempt to get Woods a reprieve. King frantically urged people to tweet Ivy and to call her chief of staff to try to halt the execution. Their efforts were to no avail, and Woods was executed by the state shortly after 9 p.m. Woods did not have any last words. King blasted Ivy and the courts for the irreversible justice. Ivy issued a statement after the execution, standing by the original jury's decision to convict Woods. He said under Alabama law, someone who helps kill the police officer is just as guilty as the person who directly commits the crime. Since 1983, Alabama has executed 2 individuals for being an accomplice to capital murder. He says after thorough and careful consideration of the facts surrounding the case, the initial jury's decision, the many legal challenges and reviews, it concluded that the state of Alabama should carry out Mr. Woods' lawfully imposed sentence this evening, the statement said. He says this is not a decision that he took lightly, but he firmly believes in the rule of law and that justice must be served. His thoughts and most sincere prayers are for the families of the officers. May God comfort be with their family as they continue to find peace and heal from this terrible crime. Woods is the first person executed in Alabama state this year, and the 67th since the death penalty was reinstated in 1976. Spencer also faces the death penalty, but his execution date has yet to be set.